We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Before we begin today's episode, let's hear from this week's sponsor.
You know, almost nobody gets personal finance training in medical school or dental school. When you get out of training, you're saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt right out of the gate. So it's no wonder that physician burnout is such a problem. And that problem isn't limited to just the physician. That kind of financial stress affects your family life because it constrains your finances and it prevents you from reaching your financial goals. As a result, your marriage may be strained and stressed as well. Well, that's why I'm so excited to tell you about the Marriage and Money MD Summit coming up on November 15th through 17th. It's a free summit for healthcare professionals who want to build a stronger marriage and create a better path to building wealth. You'll hear from 21 amazing speakers over 3 days, and you'll come away with the tools and resources you need to have the happy family life and the path to financial independence that you deserve. You can sign up today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Even if you don't get a chance to attend the talks live, sign up for free anyway, and you can catch the replays for the rest of the week. Again, click the link in the podcast description to sign up for free. I can't wait to see you there.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. And as you know, we promote several different types of freedom on this show. First is financial freedom, getting your finances right. Time freedom, location freedom, and emotional freedom. And so I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu, and I bring you guests that I really find that are really interesting, doing really interesting, innovative, creative work, or living their what they preach. So today we have a very special guest, Dawn Baker, and I'm going to bring up her bio here. So Dr. Dawn Baker, she's the founder of Practice Balance, and she first became interested in writing about wellness as a lover of language and outdoor athlete who experienced a major health crisis during residency training, which you're going to hear about. And through her writing, coaching, and speaking, Dawn inspires others to develop their own individual practice of balance via self-knowledge and self-awareness. She's been featured on numerous podcasts. She's spoken for the White Coat Investor and as well as Kevin MD and MedPage Today. She's board certified anesthesiologist, wife and mother. She also enjoys traveling, rock climbing, strength training, and yoga, in addition to the simple pleasure of taking walks with her family. So today you're going to hear all about financial independence, early retirement, the mindsets, and the idea of a balanced lifestyle. So without ado, we'll welcome Dr. Dawn Baker to the show. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much, Chris. It's happy to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, I've really I followed you, and we've spoken at a number of the same summits, and I really like your holistic and your well-balanced approach. And I know today you have a very interesting topic that we discussed, so we can transition into that. And before that, tell our audience, your journey, how that led you to financial independence, and then how you actually and your central message today.
Sure. Well, I feel like over the number of years that I've been an adult, basically, and in this pursuit of medicine, I've just really come full circle. I started out not as a physician or wanting to go into medicine at all. I was in engineering, and with my husband, got really deep into the lifestyle and the culture of rock climbing. And it really shaped a lot of the decisions that I've made and the lifestyle that I've designed today. We met a lot of people early on in this journey of doing the rock climbing and traveling all around the world and the country. that were happy living a very simple life. And some of those people had professional careers, which was really surprising because I had never met anybody like that or known any role models until that point. And this is kind of early 20s time. And then I also knew people who had these really simple jobs, something like the one that I very distinctly remember was a person that was a school photographer. And this guy worked like half of the year, basically made ten to $20,000. This is in the 90s, and lived this super simple life, but was an extremely intelligent, thoughtful person and super happy. And so from there, I decided that I know it goes kind of against that, but that I wanted to go into medicine because I really still loved science, but I wanted to do something that was a little more freeing in the location that I could live. So I pursued this medical career knowing that medicine is needed everywhere, including in other countries, thinking that, well, maybe we may want to live in, a foreign country someday. Everyone is sick everywhere in the world and they need medicine. So I went into medicine, but along the way, I drank the Kool-Aid like a lot of us do of kind of that achievement where you just get into this grind of going and getting the gold stars and like doing more. And then people tell you you're good at something, and then that feeds more into that. I like to call it the hedonic treadmill of achievement now. It's just kind of something that you get addicted to a little bit. So I would say that that took me away a little bit from the path that I initially went into medicine in order to achieve. But along the way, I had a health scare in which I was training for residency and started feeling some non-specific symptoms. It's a long story, but it was involved reproductive symptoms. It involved depression. It involved infertility, and just really an overall kind of very strong fatigue. But I was trying to do, what we needed to do to be a resident: get up really early, work super hard, all the hours. And it took quite a while, and I delayed my own diagnosis, but I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And it turned out that this tumor was a benign pituitary tumor, but it was quite large and it was causing me to go blind. I didn't even realize I was going blind. So that really was a wake up call for me. I was very relieved that it was something that was benign and could be removed surgically. And even though I was left with some difficulties with hormonal balance and needing to take medications every day, which I've now done for the last 10 years, I was very grateful to have a diagnosis, to still be alive, to basically wake me up to going back to what I was really trying to do with my life, to go back to that lifestyle design that I was originally trying to pursue. It made me wake up and realize, like, hey, wait a minute. I don't really want to necessarily be on this achievement where I was trying to get the competitive fellowship and I was trying to work, and go, and do all of the hours. I just went back to simplicity. And so I recovered, and in the same period of time, we were able to start a family with the help of infertility treatments, which is just a major, amazing technology that we have available to us. And now I lead this simple life, practicing medicine on my terms, working on my schedule, and just kind of moving more and more towards freedom. And at the same time, we realized that we were financially independent.
That's a very inspiring story. So, you mentioned a lot of interesting things, and we're all experience this. The approval and the validation seeking, and really the status chasing. Do you think that's ingrained in our culture of medicine, or is it specifically ingrained in our from society or media? Because I've done a lot of research and I tried to really understand where it is coming from. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think there are probably multiple factors at play there.
Mhm.
There's the culture of medicine, but medicine is self-selecting for these certain kinds of people.
Uh,
So people who want to help others and want to put others before themselves in certain circumstances and are kind of willing to have that delayed gratification, willing to do the service. It goes along with medicine, but then also being high achievers, people who like to achieve, um, who enjoy mastery, who like academics. So there are kind of like a lot of factors at play. And then the culture just keeps perpetuating, because the people that are training the new, um, future doctors or future healthcare practitioners already kind of have that background. And then there's a little bit of that aspect of like, well, I went through X, Y, and Z, and so you need to go through that too. And that's why it's so hard to change some of the lifestyle factors that are in medicine. Like it took forever to have work hour restrictions in residency, for example.
Right. So you brought up a lot of good points, and so it sounds like a lot of it has to do with balancing. So you balance, your own personal values, with those of the culture and the profession, and but it sounds like a lot of physicians don't really understand their internal motivations or their drives. And what you're talking about a lot is the ego. We get the ego gets fed, so it just perpetuates itself. So I know you wanted to talk a lot about financial independence and early retirement, and really the fact that a lot of physicians, they're striving and they're achieving, but they don't really know what they're going after. So I know you want to speak about that as well.
Well, yeah, I feel like that from that early time where I had this vision in mind that I wanted to lead this simple and free life, except that I really wanted to still do something that I cared about with and have a purpose. I wanted to have science and service in my life, but I wanted it on my terms. I
Oh,
had this vision. And yeah, I lost it along the way. I mean, I lost my vision literally and figuratively, but I gained it back. And
oh,
it doesn't have to take this health scare to get that. Like other people can be more proactive and not make the mistake that I made of kind of going down this rabbit hole and then not taking care of yourself and not realizing and being self-aware and getting
no.
sick. You
Mhm.
don't have to get sick to have this realization that you need to have a clear vision and a clear sense of your values. So now when I coach people and I talk to people, I really emphasize that they need to learn about themselves, learn their inner workings and their inner personalities and what really drives them, the things that they like and don't like, and then also what values they have and what they want to be working towards. Because if you say, oh, well, I want to retire early or I want to be financially independent, well, what is that going to lead you to? What's your next step after that? Are you going to pivot towards something outside of medicine? Do you want to continue doing medicine and just do it like me, where you work whatever hours you want to work and you say no to the things that you don't want to do? Or, are you so burned out that you're like, well, maybe I don't even really like medicine. Maybe I want to be doing something completely different, which I know is kind of the path that you took, where you went into medicine and then just completely pivoted out of clinical medicine. So people need to learn and be thinking as they're pursuing, as they're saving their money, as they're investing, what am I doing this for? Why do I care?
Right. Yeah, you drop so many pearls and gems, and really ultimately it's the end goal of what we're seeking. Is it happiness, relationships? You also brought up a good point where you mentioned you're practicing medicine on your own terms, and I know you have the financial independence. You also have the emotional freedom with your family and with your and you also have the location independence. So, what are some ways that a lot of physicians, they wake up, they go to the hospital, clinic, they're stuck in one city or location. How can physicians pursue a more location independent type of career or practice?
I think this kind of depends on your specialty. Being anesthesiology,
Uh,
it's a little bit easier to not to think of working in different places, having multiple different positions. Like right now I'm doing locum tenens anesthesia.
Mm.
I do that on a very limited basis. And then on the side, I do speaking, writing, and coaching, work-life balance coaching.
Uh,
I really like doing all these different things, but it's really, balance is the other thing, is it's really individual. So one person's idea of balance is not going to be another person's idea, because someone may not want to travel around because for them traveling is stressful. And so learning that about yourself is important, and really contemplating these things. But that's one way to go. So I really wanted to be location independent so that we could travel around, so that we could live in multiple different places at different times of the year. And so I have transitioned slowly to this position where I'm doing per diem work, and I really like it. But anesthesia lends itself to that, because we don't have this ongoing clinical practice unless you do chronic pain management. And I don't do that. So I just work in the operating room. So that's one factor. But I know people that are clinic based. I have well, it's kind of hybrid, but a physical medicine rehab friend. And I also have a friend that's really clinic. That's like peds GI. That's very clinic. They do locum tenens only too. And
uh,
they are able to carve this into their work-life balance situation individually, for their family. It really depends on how old your kids are and all those kind of things. And timing is of the essence, but it can be done. The other thing that you can do is you can do work position sharing within a group. You can, share one full-time position with somebody else. You just have to kind of find that person. And so that takes a little bit of networking and time and thinking and reaching out. The other thing that's important to remember is that you have to be willing to maybe, how do I put this? Like, it's not give an unpopular opinion, but like be the person that's doing something different. Um, so I was in an academic practice, and they were allowing me to do a position that was part-time and completely clinical already, which was great. But then I tried to push the envelope and say, well, I really just want to do per diem. I want to do seasonal. They didn't go for it. But you have to be willing to say, to hear that, and to hear the no,
mm,
and to do the negotiation and be like, well, okay, I'm going to go do something different then. And that's where saving money and living below your means is really helpful, because you build up that confidence to think, well, I'm okay. I've got an emergency fund here. So if my job says, well, I don't want you to do the flexible scheduling that you're proposing, you can be like, all right, that's okay with me. I'm willing to walk away from this job. There's just no loyalty anymore. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that you don't owe anybody anything, and they don't owe you anything. So you just need to be very self-aware of what you want, and keep that in mind when you're talking to other people.
wow, that's very powerful. I, uh, so if and then I also know a lot of the listeners on this show would be interested in in coaching, or doing a thought or public speaking influencer career. So tell for the listeners, feel free to tell more about your coaching and speaking and writing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, speaking, I kind of fell into a little bit. I decided a few years ago to push the envelope on my writing and do something that was uncomfortable. And so I started out with podcasting, and asked to be on a few different podcast recordings like yours or other people's. I started out in the medicine. I branched out to some other fields. I've been on an infertility community podcast, for example. And I just asked a lot of times, and then I have been asked subsequently to that. That was the stepping stone I did into doing paid public speaking. And then I would say that I could probably be better about seeking out public speaking gigs, but in the essence of my own personal balance, I like to have downtime and I like to move really slowly. And I just know that about myself. So I don't push and hustle. I'm not constantly trying to find gigs, but there are certain go-tos that I will apply to every year. And again, you have to be willing to just have them say no. I'll pitch to people and then say, well, this is what I want to talk about. And if they don't like the topic, they don't like the topic. It's not necessarily personal. You just have to be willing to put it out there and say, this is my area that I want to talk about. And some people will resonate with it and other people won't.
Yeah.
And then as far as coaching goes, I recently started that. I actually started doing that during the pandemic because I gave a speech at the White Coat Investor Conference that was right before the pandemic started. Actually, it was an in-person. It was like one of the last in-person medical conferences of 2020. And people there were asking me if I did coaching. And I had never even thought of doing it before. I don't know why I hadn't, because I really love it now. It's been great. So I got into it. I did some training and started out. I had kind of a /friend colleague who was my first client, and it just goes from there. You know, you kind of do a couple free clients, and then doing things like this, you end up getting people that inquire about your services, and you talk to them on the phone for free for a half an hour to an hour and kind of like go over their problems and see if you're a fit. And then you just go from there.
Yeah, that's yeah. So I know a lot of the listeners would be interested in contacting you. So what's the best way to follow you or reach you? And you know, feel free to, and then let the listeners know.
Yeah, so I have a website that is called practicebalance.com, and I've been writing articles about work-life balance, about what it was like to be a patient, about clinical work, about family, and just kind of everyday things. I've been writing there for almost 10 years, since basically I had my health scare. And that has a lot of fun articles that you can search the archives on. You can subscribe to my newsletter there, and you'll get a free download that is basically like a guided journal that you can write just to kickstart self-knowledge. It gives a lot of questions that maybe you haven't thought about if you've had your nose to the grindstone, head down, and you're, you know, in training, or you're a new attending, or even if you're just a professional, like in another field. It can be helpful to anyone. So I have that free download there. And then there is a way to contact me on the website and a way to schedule a free discovery call with me. So you just go to the contact area and schedule a call. And I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And then I am most active social media wise on Instagram because I love photography. So I love posting photos, and my Instagram handle is Practice Balance. It's just one word, Practice Balance. And I'm on Facebook as well. It's just my name, Dawn Baker.
Awesome. Yeah, for the listeners, we'll put all the references and resources from Dr. Baker into the show notes. And Dr. Baker, what is your final parting words of inspiration or motivation to the audience?
I think my big message to people is always just learn more about yourself. Think more about yourself and put yourself first. It's not selfish. The way that you will achieve your goals is by knowing yourself.
I love that. So you dropped so many pearls of wisdom, some really a lot of great information. Thanks so much for being on the show, and we hope to have you back as a guest in the future.
Sure, happy to do it. And thanks for having me today.
My pleasure.
Come join us at the Marriage and Money MD Summit coming up on November 15th through 17th. It's a free summit for healthcare professionals who want to build a stronger marriage and create a better path to building wealth. Click the link in the podcast description to sign up for free and come away with the tools and resources you need to have the happy family life and path to financial independence that you deserve.
I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website, www.drchrislumd.com. congruentphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.